Hey, and welcome to our next question of the week video. This is Ike. I'm Justin. Welcome back, Ike.
Thanks, it's good to be here.
I think you said that last week.
I just felt like,
I mean, it is good to be here.
yeah.
So this week we wanted to talk about the question. The question is, when do you have a hard time believing God is for you? And I think this is a interesting question.
Yeah, I think it's one of those questions we can all resonate with, that feeling of feeling like God's not for us. You know, have situations in our lives or things that we experienced. I think for my life, the times that it's hardest to believe that God is for me is when I feel like in some way I've disappointed God. You know, especially when I've made some commitment, something I've said, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore, or I'm going to start doing this more consistently, and then, you know, I don't live up to that, or I fail to follow through on that, and feel like as a result of that, you know, God's really disappointed, or that I've let him down. And so it's easy in that time to feel like, you know, maybe because I've disappointed God, he's not for me. You know, and so it seems like there's this contract at work where if I don't hold up my side, then he's not going to be holding up his side or carrying in the same way.
Yeah, I think the funny thing about this just entire topic is that this is entirely an internal struggle with us. I think it's easy for us to think that God has the same standards for how relationships work as we do with people. And so when somebody, you know, strike one, strike two, strike three, you're out, I'm not dealing with you anymore. But God doesn't work that way. God has an unlimited source of mercy and grace that he offers to us. And I think that that's the thing for us, is that the internal struggle is, oh man, I didn't do this thing exactly the way that I really wish that I should have. And so now God is going to not like me. And then maybe you start seeing things in your life that start like, oh, this didn't happen the way that it should have because God is mad at me. Or I know personally for me, there's been times in my life where, yeah, that feeling was because things didn't line up how I thought they should have lined up. You know, I move and I get this new job and then it really just falls apart. And nothing works out great. And then, you know, where we're living isn't where we actually were designed to be. And there's no way for us to connect, and we lose community. And all of those things happen to me. And I know at that point in my life, it was one of those things where like, man, like, is God for me? And then, you know, through just time and being open to what God is doing, then everything works out differently. And it's not from my own thing. So it was once I balanced that internal struggle inside myself, it became something different.
I think too, a lot of times our first reaction when we don't, you know, do what we think we're supposed to do or live up to what we've said we want to and that kind of thing, our first response is to think of maybe God being upset with us or being angry with us. When in fact, I think what Scripture shows us and we see over and over again is that our first thought should not be, you know, that God's upset with us or that he's disappointed in us, but actually our first thought should be God's merciful, God's gracious, God's kindness. That in light of all of that, in fact, that's why God shows his grace and tells us of his abundant grace is for those times where we're most in need of that grace, and to be reminded of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really interesting topic, and I think that this is something that for each one of us, it's something we have to internally wrestle with and figure out on our own, and know that there's going to be periods in our life where we're going to feel really close to God. We're going to feel like God is right there with us and not disconnected. And there's going to be other periods where it just doesn't feel that way. And so I really want to encourage you guys to get involved in community and be a part of conversation, because that's where almost like talking you off the ledge, right? Like, hey, different people can see a perspective of your life that's different than you can. And you get inside your own head and think God's not for me. God's not doing these things for me. But really, in community, you can figure out what that is. And so, we'd love to see what you guys think about this topic. If there's things that you want to talk about with your leaders or in the comments of the video, we'd really love to see that. And thanks again.
Thanks. Absolutely.
Break.